we're looking at the Wise coal-fired power plant, and I wonder if you can give us a sense of what the ramifications of EPA's recent judgment on coal-fired plants and CO2 capture. If you can give us a status on the Wise power
Sure,
plant.
I will, and I got to say I'm not an expert. So we can on the EPA, the recent EPA rulings. We might want to talk about that, but I'll talk about Wise, and if you want to ask me specifics about the EPA ruling and how it might apply, I'm glad to do that. Big picture, and this is one that a lot of my friends don't agree with me on, but I feel pretty strongly about it, and I spent a lot of time studying it. We are not going to have a no coal future in the next generation or so in this country, with coal being basically 48% of Virginia's base power load, and nationally it's right about the same. The issue for us on coal is how to make coal cleaner, and then how to shrink that piece of the pie. So if there's a pie chart, coal is 48%. The goal is that should be smaller and it should be cleaner. I think the only way to get there is to invest in cleaner plants and then either close down the older, dirtier plants or retrofit them to cleaner technologies. And there's kind of a leapfrog strategy on coal where you leap ahead to cleaner technologies and then shutter or retrofit the dirtier plants. The Wise plant met that criteria for me, because the Wise plant, from a technological standpoint, was, and especially with the permit requirements that my air board put on it, which I very much supported, significantly cleaner in nitrous oxide, NOx, sulfur dioxide, and mercury than a lot of the existing older plants in Virginia. Uses dramatically less water because of a special technology there. And it is built in such a way that as carbon sequestration technology moves forward, and I know there's debate about whether it will or whether it won't, I happen to believe that it can, you don't have to worry about the transportation problems because it's built in a place where you can store carbon right there. The big issue with the carbon sequestration is how do you store it? It's kind of like the nuclear waste issue. How do you store it? But if you have a plant that's right there on the coal seams, one of the commonly thought mechanisms for storage, injection into these coal seams, you can do it right there. So, and in addition, this plant came with an addition, which is we're going to switch Bremo, which is one of the dirtiest plants in Virginia that Dominion had, dirty coal, grandfathered in under the old Clean Air Act, so it didn't have to meet current standards. We're going to switch it to gas-fired. So it met my criteria for what the right way to do coal is, which is invest in cleaner, close dirtier, and then as the nation gets better and better on the coal side, this is technology we'll be selling to other nations because they're going to be building coal. They'll build dirty coal or clean coal. We want them to build clean coal. So that is kind of big picture my view on the energy future, shrinking and cleaning the coal piece. I believe in expanded nuclear. Nuclear is going to grow to help coal shrink. And then other energy sources. I think wind energy off the coast has a huge possibility. Biodiesel, we have some interesting algae to biodiesel research that's going on in Virginia. Solar, so all of these things will have a piece, but I viewed Wise as a situation where we were investing in cleaner technology and kicking a dirty plant out of the system and thought that was a positive move.
Do you see any new energy legislation coming through in 2009?
Yes. I think what we'll do, Josh, on energy is a couple of things. When we were moving in 2006 when I came into office toward deregulated energy, which would have been a disaster. So in my 07 State of the Commonwealth, I told the legislature, we got to stop the move to dereg. It's going to mess everything up. And we have to re-regulate. And so we have a re-reg bill that is a little bit different than the old bill was, because for the first time we actually give incentives in greater rates of return for investments in things like renewable portfolio, cleaner energy production. What we're doing is we're going back and looking at that bill, though, to see whether we can build in more incentives for efficiency and conservation measures. So there's incentives for clean production and there's incentives for RPS usage, but there were not, I don't think, significant enough incentives for efficiency and conservation. So we want to make sure that in the energy side that it is very clear that in any analysis of any new generation capacity, for example, if an equivalent investment in efficiency and conservation would get you as much savings as the new plant would produce in terms of new capacity, you ought to go with the one that is the efficiency and conservation. So we're going to do some things on energy, probably also some tax credit work to inspire more green energy projects in Virginia. But we're going to go back into that re-reg bill and make sure that there's sufficient incentives for energy and conservation, and efficiency.
Are you, in terms of the energy and conservation build, is that something that is in legislation at this point, or is it?
We will not really do our legislative package. I present the budget to the legislature on the 16th of December, and then I present non-budgetary legislative policy to them usually in the first week of January. So the non-budgetary energy policy stuff isn't completely finalized yet. And what we're doing is, I'll tell you, we're just going to call this year Renew Virginia. And we're going to do things like, continue to push on the land conservation initiative that we're doing that's working pretty well. I'm chairman of the Southern Governors Association this year, trying to come up with a Southern Regional Energy and Climate Strategy. The other 3 governors associations have one, Southern governors don't, so I'm working with my colleagues to come up with one. And I'm also chairman of the Executive Council of the Chesapeake Bay program within EPA. We've put about $750 million into the Chesapeake Bay during my time as governor. And we've got to do some aggressive things in the Bay with the other states and the EPA. I'm excited about a new EPA administrator who will be a partner in that. So you'll see initiatives across all of these areas, energy certainly, but open space preservation, water, cleanliness, promotion of conservation and efficiency, green jobs promotion, all kind of under, we're calling it Renew Virginia, and it's kind of all be part of a real multifaceted effort this year.
Good to hear. Still looking forward to 2009, but switching to elections.
Yeah.
What do you think of the candidates, and especially the candidates who are looking to move in here?
For governor. Well, I think we Democrats are experiencing something that we better get used to, which is, in the past, when it's been hard for Democrats, you don't often have competitive primaries. I mean, if one would run, great, give it a try. But as we become more successful, it obviously is more attractive for people to run as Democrats. And that means I think we should all get used to the notion that we're going to have more competitive races, including competitive primaries in this instance for governor. So the 3 candidates who are now declared or close to declared, Cree Deeds is a dear friend, was my running mate. I know Cree well, served with him in the Senate when I was lieutenant governor, and he was a member of the state Senate. Brian Moran I've worked with very closely as lieutenant governor, but certainly as he's been the head of the House caucus during the time I've been governor, we've worked closely together. And Terry McAuliffe, when he was DNC chair, was hugely helpful to my effort to become governor. And so I'm going to basically, say I like them all. They're all good Democrats. They are all friends. All those things are true. I'm not going to take a position in the race. Instead, I'm going to do what I can between now and when the primary happens to keep Democrats together and excited. I will certainly try to keep these 3 candidates generally positive towards one another. But I want to do what I can so that once the party has a nominee, I can be really helpful and immediately, doing what I can to help the nominee be successful in November.
And what's it going to take for Democrats to take back the House in 2009?
It's going to be a challenge. I think if you're trying to take back something that's the other guys have, it's always a challenge, but we've done that the last few years. We've been really good at doing that. And so, there have to be a number of, first we got to make sure Democratic incumbents return, but then there's got to be a number of seats where we, in a very, targeted way, try to win seats for Democrats. Now, if you look at the number of districts that, House districts where Barack Obama got, 48% or above, that are currently represented by Republicans, there's a lot of them. And so that means that we have every reason to feel like we can field good candidates and go out and be real competitive. But we have to acknowledge we're the underdogs, and it's going to be tough and challenging, but I know Ward Armstrong and the guys in the House are real focused on it. And I view politics as a team sport, not as an individual sport. Politics is the only sport where the player gets to decide whether it's an individual sport or a team sport. I'm a team sport guy. And so I'm going to do what I can, obviously, to be helpful to the House, just as I'm going to try to help our statewide candidates.